And we are live. Welcome back, everybody, to the Revo Report. I'm Vince Revo, and today we're diving into something that's been causing quite a stir. Disney's new Snow White adaptation versus the timeless 1935 classic. What's fascinating isn't just how differently they are, but what these differences reveal about our shifting cultural values. Welcome to the Revo Report. We're inspiring faith with reason and reason with faith. Before we get started, if you find value in thoughtful cultural analysis from a biblical perspective, hit that subscribe button and notification bell. We'll be interviewing some of the greatest thinkers of our day. Now, this movie has bombed completely. It's gotten less than 2-star reviews. As you can see there, coming in on the screen, all the ratings 1.6 out of 10 as we're recording these videos, 19%, 29% rating. These are abysmal. And I'll tell you the reason why. We went from fairest of them all to fearless and fair. You see, the original Snow White centered around beauty, specifically her physical beauty that provoked the jealous queen. Queen gets jealous because of her beauty. She wants to be the most beautiful. But there was always a deeper meaning happening because Snow White's beauty reflected her inner beauty, her purity, her goodness. And the Bible repeatedly emphasizes this distinction. In 1 Samuel 16:7, it reminded us that the Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. In contrast, the new film attempts to redefine fairness to mean political fairness rather than beauty, creating this weird narrative where the mirror's judgment becomes confusing. It loses its foundation because when Snow White is declared fairest, it's not about beauty, it's about political righteousness. This muddles the original message about vanity, jealousy, and inner virtue, something that all of us can relate to, and probably why the original Snow White was so successful. C.S. Lewis observed, "We do not want merely to see beauty. We want something else, which can hardly be put into words, to be united with the beauty we see, to pass into it, to receive it into ourselves." And what is that beauty? The beauty of our Creator. You see, the original Snow White understood this spiritual dimension of beauty, while the remake reduces it to political posturing. We know that stories are powerful. In fact, research tells us time and time again, and in a study from Stanford University, that stories are 22 times more memorable than facts alone. And this highlights why the coherent symbolism of the original Snow White has endured for generations. It speaks to deeper truths about human nature. Now, if you're finding this analysis helpful, please like and share this video to help others discover the deeper dimensions of these cultural shifts that we're witnessing and how it relates to our walk with God. Another thing that's interesting is that in the original film, Snow White cleans the dwarfs' cottage and cooks for them, acts of humble service born from gratitude and her inner goodness. And this is exactly what Jesus teaches us. Whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant. You see, the remake fundamentally inverts this, showing Snow White teaching the dwarves to clean instead of doing it herself. She's now this micromanager. She's delegating off this service. She's the CEO. And this reflects our culture's discomfort with traditional feminine virtues like nurturing, service, cleaning, cooking. It was Dietrich Bonhoeffer who noted the ultimate test of a moral society is the kind of world that it leaves to its children. What are we leaving our children with remakes like this? What values are we transmitting when we rewrite classics to eliminate service, to eliminate humility? We know that throughout history, anthropological studies have found that storytelling has served as adaptive collective sense-making across cultures for thousands of years. When we deliberately break the symbolic patterns in these stories, we effectively disrupt their ability to transmit that wisdom across those generations. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this in the comments below. If you think that the original Snow White's portrayal of service was demeaning or that showcasing a virtue we've lost sight of today, your voice matters in this conversation. So let us know because we read every single comment. Another thing that I find interesting is there is this distortion of complementary strengths. So the original Snow White portrayed this beautiful harmony. Snow White had unique strengths. She was kind, she was innocent, pure, nurturing. And the prince had others. He was courageous, he was brave, he was protective. And together, they were stronger. They complemented each other. And that is a biblical truth. Two are better than one. But the remake follows a weird, although predictable pattern of making the female protagonist the hero again. She's the one who saves the male character. She's the one who is strong and brave and courageous, while the male character is weak. The prince here, Jonathan, needs Snow White's help multiple times. He's this useless, incompetent guy. And it creates this imbalance where she does not need him at all. She's just what, in love with him? But there is no complementary pairing here. G.K. Chesterton once remarked, the modern world is full of the old Christian virtues gone mad. The virtues have gone mad because they have been isolated from each other and are wandering alone. We have the Christian virtues without Christ. And that's what's happened in our world. And that's what's happened in this story. We've elevated independence to such a degree that we've forgotten the beauty in interdependence, in working together, in unity. And what's interesting is that the renowned atheist philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche warned against this feminization of values. He missed something crucial. Truth's strength isn't found in dominance, but in the balance of complementary virtues. You have a strength, I have a weakness. And hopefully that strength will complement each other. From the biblical perspective, we see time and time again that it doesn't elevate one gender above another. It doesn't elevate one hero or one king or one prophet over the other, but it shows how different people have different strengths and different leaders have different weaknesses, and that male and female can actually work in harmony, that in Christ there is neither male nor female. Galatians 3:28, because we all have equal worth as made in the image of God, being image bearers of God, but we have different roles because we have different strengths and weaknesses. In 2018, there was a study published in Psychological Science and found that traditional fairy tales help children develop emotional intelligence by exposing them to archetypal challenges and relationships. When we flatten these into simplistic girl power narratives, we rob children of these developmental benefits. And symbolism has been corrupted. The most troubling aspect of the new Snow White is its incoherent symbolism. The poisoned apple, the mirror, the kiss, these were before all very powerful symbols, but because of this confusing narrative and all of this political posturing, all of these things, the mirror becomes empty because it contradicts itself. The kiss is empty. The apple doesn't really represent anything. It's divorced from the original story. And because it's divorced from the original story, there's no meaning behind it. In the Bible, symbols matter. Jesus used parables with rich symbolism to convey spiritual truths. It was N.T. Wright that explained stories create worlds. Tell the story differently and you change the world. And what we're seeing here is not really a story, but more propaganda. The original Snow White used the mirror to show how vanity distorts self-perception. The apple represented the temptation. The kiss symbolized how love brings new life. Each element connected to deeper traits, human truths that all of us can probably relate with at some level. It was Tim Keller who said, "We modern people think of fairy tales as primarily for children because we've lost the ability to read them mythically to see that they are dealing with the most important issues of life." But the new Snow White demonstrates this loss. It retains the symbols, but it empties all of them from their meaning. There's a study, or the researchers at Durham University stated that fairy tales like Snow White can be traced back sometimes thousands of years, suggesting they contain this enduring wisdom about human nature that is timeless. But when we carelessly rewrite these stories to fit modern day political ideologies, we may be discrediting ancient wisdom that we don't fully understand. And finally, there is this rejection of redemptive suffering. The original Snow White contained a profound message about suffering and resurrection. Snow White endures hardship, apparent death, and then experiences resurrection power. Through what? Through love. What is that? That is the message of the gospel narrative. That's the message of Jesus Christ coming to serve, dying, and being risen. And the remake transforms this into some type of political revolution storyline where Snow White primarily fights for power rather than undergoes spiritual formation. And this reflects really our culture's discomfort with suffering and our preference for stories of empowerment rather than redemption. Corey ten Boom, who endured Nazi concentration camps, wrote this: "There is no pit so deep that God's love is not deeper still." Friends, the original Snow White understood this very truth, that suffering can lead to transformation. Suffering can lead to growth. Suffering can lead to new life. And the biblical pattern is clear. Unless a kernel of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains only a single seed. But if it dies, it produces many seeds. That's in John 12:24. You see, true transformation comes through surrender, not through seizing control. Even in marketing, storytelling is always told. In fact, storytelling is one of the most effective ways to market. And the most powerful stories don't just entertain, they transform. They make us think, they make us reflect. And when we lose the redemptive suffering element in our stories, we lose their transformative power. My dear friends, our culture is hungry for meaningful stories, but we keep serving up hollow remakes. And the failure of this new Snow White might actually signal a change, because this was a catastrophic failure. Maybe Disney's going to find out that audiences are tired of these empty retellings and longings for stories with actual soul. And I want to tell you the greatest story of all, and that is Jesus Christ, who offers us himself. A story of a king who became a servant, who suffered and died for us, who conquered death and offers new life. The greatest story of all is the story of Jesus Christ. He can turn our messes into a message, our trials into triumph, our brokenness into beauty, our confusion into clarity, and our darkness into dawn. Just as the original Snow White lay waiting for love's redemptive power, we too await the return of our king. But unlike Snow White, we don't need to wait in sleep. We can experience his transforming love today. It was Jonathan Edwards that proclaimed, "The way to heaven is ascending. We must be content to travel uphill, though it be hard and tiresome and contrary to the natural bias of our flesh." Will you choose the deeper story? The one that doesn't flatter our egos, but transforms our hearts. The one that doesn't merely entertain for a moment, but redeems for an eternity. That choice is yours. And unlike Disney's remakes, this original can never be improved upon. The story of Jesus Christ.